it was an absolute rout from start to finish, much like the one I was at a week or so ago in Spokane, where Gonzaga just ran Texas out of the building. Now they do it to a UCLA team that is completely different than the Longhorns. Texas had all these new dudes. UCLA brought back just about everybody. I get that they didn't have Cody Riley, but Steve, this had to surprise you as much as it did me, right?
Yeah, I was shocked. I was looking forward to getting on here about 11:15, my time from that standpoint. Even in the Texas game, I got home, watched the second half of the game. It was a 20-point game, but they kind of willed themselves to get it back to 10. Bolton hit that shot at the end of the half. That was huge. But Texas they kept you around. They kept you around. Tonight it's kind of stayed in that 17, 18, 19, 20 range to where obviously Gonzaga was phenomenal and UCLA was not at its best tonight. And it'll be interesting to see the Duke game on Friday.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see now is Gonzaga the dominant team? And if they can pound Duke like they pounded Texas and pounded UCLA tonight, Rob, people are going to be ready to give them the national title. I don't buy that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what was it tonight? Was it more kind of a little bit fluky that UCLA couldn't make shots early, dug themselves a hole, and then again, Gonzaga with Nembhard just controlling the pace, controlling the tempo? I mean, they were pushing it, getting whatever they wanted out of transition early.
I don't think that it was fluky. I think that this is what Gonzaga is going to be defensively this year. I'm buying it. I don't know if you guys are, and Steve, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this, but I'm buying what they are defensively. They have the big, I don't know if you would call them athletic, but they're big physical wings that can get out and pressure you on the perimeter. And it takes away kind of what UCLA does best, which is just ISO ball, right? That's basically what they want to do. They want to force switches until they get a matchup that they like, and they want to attack it. It's what they did against Villanova. It's what they did in their tournament run last year. It's kind of how Mick Cronin has built this team a little bit. And they could, like, Gonzaga wouldn't let them have any success with that. And it didn't help that everybody on UCLA was terrified of getting within 8 feet of the rim because Chet Holmgren is back there. And Steve, you can attest this. The value of having that eraser at the rim, it allows you to take some risks on the perimeter. And it feels like Gonzaga's guys are a little bit more confident knowing that they have that guy back at the rim able to protect everything.
Yeah, I think anytime you have your perimeter, those perimeter guys know somebody like Chet Holmgren. It reminds me of the Beard's great team at Texas Tech, Tariq Owens, when he was spearheading around the basket. You can be so good on the ball. You can pressure. If you get beat, rotation's coming with Chet. And then Timmy is physical. He may not do it with the length and athleticism around the rim, but when you talk about fundamentally sound guys walling up, he does it from that standpoint. But they were terrific. Obviously, I'm all in on this Gonzaga team. The one thing I wrote down just as I watched the game is they look like they are happy for one another. Yes. They look like they're pulling for one another. They share the basketball. Their chemistry is really good. And because, you say it used to be, well, they play in the West Coast Conference. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. The West Coast Conference, when you look at the upper half, is really, really good and has had some phenomenal wins so far. This team has got a chance to make another run like they did last year for sure.
So here's my only question with them coming in was, can they make enough shots from the perimeter, right? Do they have those guys? Because Timmy's not a guy who's going to make them. Chet can make one here or there, but that's probably not going to be his game. And Andrew Nembhard and Rozier Bolton, by the way, it is pronounced Rozier Bolton, which Steve knows. A lot of people got it wrong, including Drew Timme. They tried to teach Drew last week how to pronounce it correctly, and I think he just called him like Roz or something like that. But Bolton's like a career. Both Nembhard and Bolton are not great three-point shooters. They're probably like low to mid-30s, and they've both been shooting the hell out of the ball so far this season. Is it a little fluky? I mean, Nembhard came in, I think 7 of 17. Bolton was 10 of 21 from three. They're making him tonight. I think they're 8 of 18 so far tonight. Is this a team? You see it all the time. Jalen Suggs last year, right, got off to a great start shooting the three, and we're all like, oh, my God, he's the number one pick. Well, then he came down to earth a little bit, and he had no body of work for us to work from. Bolton and Nembhard have a body of work, and they're clearly kind of overachieving relative to what they've done. So, Steve, is this something where you think they'll come down to earth a little bit? Because if they don't make their shots from the perimeter, they're not up 20 early against UCLA tonight.
No, transition threes were big tonight. Chet made a couple. Ra made a couple. Nembhard made one. And so I think when you look at that, especially when you play with such a strong interior presence like Drew Timme, and then you put yourself with other really good perimeter guys, or Bolton, Nembhard, Strother, they come off the bench with Hickman and Salas. I think you surround yourself with those guys. And then Chet, you saw tonight, he made 2 or 3 tonight from 3. When you have that personnel around you, I think it's going to give those guys a little bit more time, a little bit more space to make shots. And then they're playing with great confidence, and shooting is so much about confidence. I think they've continued. I think that's the one thing they've got to do a great job. They've got to maintain threes at a high level consistently. But the thing when we were talking off air is go and look at the shots, contested shots and uncontested shots on both ends of the floor. UCLA and Gonzaga, when you look at percentages, it'll be a stark difference.
Yeah, and to your point, you hit 4 in a row to start the game. That's always going to be a little bit fluky, right? And that's kind of what happened is Gonzaga came out, punched him in the mouth, hit 4 straight threes, got a little bit of a lead, got it going. And I don't think that you can't fall behind this Gonzaga team. You just can't do it because they're too good offensively. You're never going to be able to come back. And I think that's probably what kind of did UCLA, and especially if they're sick and they weren't feeling well, like when you get punched in the mouth like that, it's kind of hard to bounce back. But I'm less concerned about it because I think that no matter what happens with some of the guards shooting, I think that you're going to have more of an inside-outside game than you've ever had in the past with this group because Chet Holmgren, he can knock down threes. And maybe he's not going to be a guy that's out here shooting 45% and taking 9 a game like Corey Kispert was, but he's going to be good enough where whoever is guarding him has to respect him out on the perimeter. And I think when you look at all the guys that they have, you can have that. And oh, by the way, instead of being a 6'7" shooter like Kispert was, he's a 7'1" monster at the rim that everybody's afraid of.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing is when you take it in against Chet, you could see it with the UCLA. Everybody, didn't matter whether it was Hawkins, it didn't matter whether it was one of their bigs trying to score. After a few minutes, they all knew that Chet was there because he had blocked a couple of shots. And once that happens, it's in their head. They're thinking about it. They're not just driving, and they should be. They need to drive and get into his body and get him out of the game. And early on, I actually thought they were better without him in the game. But then he started to get comfortable defensively, made a couple of shots, and he started playing like a guy that, even though he's 188 pounds.
Yeah, it's the same thing as shooting, right? Like the threat is not whether or not you make the shot. The impact of spacing and the impact of shooting is the threat of the shot and the way that defenses have to adjust. And it's the same thing. It's not whether or not he actually gets a block. It's the impact that his presence has on the way that you play and the way that the other team reacts to the fact that he's out there, right? And I think that just simply having that presence and the knowledge that he is in the paint changes everything for this group. And to me, like that's the biggest thing. Doug Gottlieb was on here last week, and he said something that really stuck out to me. And it was that Gonzaga has always been one of these teams that will play just enough defense to get the ball back so they can go shoot again, to get the ball back so they can go score again. And this group, based off of what we saw against Texas and based off of what we saw against UCLA, it feels like they care more on that end and they're better on that end. And if they're going to get out there and guard for 40 minutes with the way that they can score, like it almost doesn't matter what their shooting is.
Yeah, I think the pace, though, if you looked at a couple times UCLA got the ball into Miles Johnson early in the game, I think that the pace of your offense, especially in the half court against Gonzaga, has got to be good because you got to stretch Chet away from the basket, Timme away from the basket, and then ball's got to go quick to go into the post, to go inside, whether you can go back outside and open things up for Juzang and some of those guys. But none of these coaches will talk about this, but it's kind of like when Baylor played in the national title game last year, and Baylor was clear-cut the best team in the country last year from A to Z. But this is a back-to-back tonight. And at times early in the first half, UCLA, some tough shots, Bolton, Nembhard, and those guards, man, they were running through UCLA. They were just pushing the pace, easy baskets. Everything was at the paint early in the game outside of those open transition threes.
But you're counting it as a back-to-back because they played Bellarmine? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Steve, that they were tired from playing Bellarmine?
I'm just I know Bellarmine in Central Michigan. Bellarmine won tonight now. Scotty Davenport.
All right. I'll give you that. What would you do, Steve? What would you do to attack Chet? Would you send guys and drive at him like they did early? Like, I thought the game plan early for Mick was right. Go at him with Miles Johnson and keep beating him and get his confidence to where he's thinking a little bit too much, whether he can play in this game physically.
Yeah, I think that's what you've got to do. And if you saw, I just think the pace of, and I don't want to get into technicality in this, but when they come off the ball screens, it's got to be quick. Throwback, post up. We got to beat Chet and get an angle on Chet. And we're scoring with angles around the basket off pick and roll instead of back to the basket and having to go over length.
Because you can't. Yeah, you're not getting them that way.
Yep. Gonzaga was terrific, though. I mean, pace offensively, ball movement, made shots, and these teams, obviously they got a chance to meet again. If it happens, it'll be in March. But Gonzaga's got great tests for us in the non-conference. Looking through their schedule, Duke, Texas Tech, Washington's a rivalry game there within the state. And so they'll be tested. And the West Coast, BYU and those guys, there'll be a lot of good tests in the league for them as well.